2007, a new generation of consoles, a new generation of gaming, and with it, a wave of new and interesting worlds to explore and experience. In 2007, we got one of the first games to draw players in a world full of worthwhile experiences, complete with story, characters, atmosphere, and lore. Taking place in one of the most unique settings in arguably any piece of media, one that has had praise and recognition come from not just critics and fans, but also celebrities like Guillermo del Toro and Gore Verbinski. That game is BioShock, a spiritual successor to System Shock 2 and led by Ken Levine of Irrational Games and published by 2K, then released on Tuesday, August 21st, 2007 to critical reception, earning 9s and 10s from many reviewers and websites. But even after all this praise, Mr. Ken Levine still believes the final product could have used another 6 to 12 months to make it perfect. How did he bring a vision that drags the audience deeper into its lore and world, and pack in a twist that no one would see coming? There's so much to unravel here, and no amount of writing and editing will do enough to compensate for just taking the time to experience the game for yourself. So if you're like me and up until this month you haven't played BioShock yet, I strongly suggest that you do so, then return to this video. Everyone else, stick around.
I am Andrew Ryan, and I'm here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? No, says the man in Washington, it belongs to the poor. No, says the man in the Vatican, it belongs to God. No, says the man in Moscow, it belongs to everyone. I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose something different. I chose the impossible. I chose rapture.
Before we get into what makes BioShock so wonderful, we have to look at what it was before its greatness. What rose from the candid feedback that testers had given to Irrational Games developers that in turn led to the product we have today. A modern-day nightmare of a terrifying nexus between religious fanaticism and unbounded science in an undersea complex. That was the original pitch that Ken Levine had for BioShock, but before that pitch became a reality, another build of BioShock was set in an overrun space station with alien eels. That original concept was actually built in the form of a demo on the original Xbox system. The game was announced in 2004, a whole 3 years later before its actual release date, and fast forward to January 2007, a mere 7 months before its release to the public, testers had come in and played the first hour of the story, and they weren't impressed. 7 months before the release of this masterpiece, players ridiculed it for a lack of direction, collecting too much loot, and Atlas, the voice who guides the player through more than half the game, sounding untrustworthy because of his at-the-time southern accent. These were a few statements made among a couple others that dragged the game down, and after long 7-day work weeks and countless hours dedicated to development, the game was ready for its August release date, and when BioShock was out to the masses, it was met with critical reception and commercial success. This because of a fantastic story with outstanding level design and a setting unlike any other in the video game medium. BioShock's story is incredibly intriguing and intricate. It's set in the 1960s, in the mid-Atlantic where you play as Jack, a silent protagonist who only speaks one line of dialogue in the opening of the game and nothing else for the rest of it.
They told me, son, you're special. You were born to do great things. You know what? They were right.
You're on a flight to some unknown destination when your plane loses altitude and crashes in the ocean, forcing you to swim your way to a lonely lighthouse and enter it to discover what lies beneath the sea. From there, the pacing is meticulously crafted to make everything feel tense at all times. The moment you enter the bathysphere, you know you're in for a ride. Your first impression is the most important thing in order to hook the audience, and Irrational Games handles this masterfully. These first 10 minutes establish a world of intrigue and lore. It's evident from the jump that the game has plenty to show and tell. I'll get into some of the nitty-gritty about some of these twists and turns that the adventure takes you on, but just know that this game has got you covered in the storytelling department. I covered Metro 2033 and Metro Last Light and praised those games for their atmosphere, and BioShock is no exception in this department.
someone new.
The opening moments lay it out that this is an immersive and consuming journey that you are about to embark on. Atmosphere and environmental storytelling are key here. It's what leads the player along in the story when there is little to no dialogue happening. In fact, a majority of the lines are spoken through the numerous voice diaries scattered throughout the ravaged underwater city. But even if you ignore every single bit of dialogue that BioShock has to offer, and you mute the sound of the voices in your settings or on your TV, you'll still find story just by looking at the words carved into walls or painted in blood on the floor while a body lies next to it, or even the images of ghosts wandering around trapped in what seems like an eternal loop, doomed to play out specific moments of their lives. This is a horror FPS for sure, and it surprised me because I came from playing BioShock 2 and Infinite, where the games weren't lighthearted by any means, but they certainly didn't make me jump like the original title did. It's all thanks to the once again excellent sense of atmosphere. It's palpable and Rapture feels lived in, inhabited. The 1960s aesthetic goes a long way to make the location feel plausible because the setting is in the 1960s. Nothing is super technically advanced, it's still very old-fashioned, Great Gatsby style architecture. It's a place that seems possible to build, a place that housed many minds. There are brilliant people that once resided in these apartments and buildings, people that invented and created to their heart's content with no limits. Then later on destroyed everything they achieved. It makes the player want to go back to when everything was first built, to see these people conceive the security systems, the big daddies, the little sisters, and the plasmids. How did all this chaos and destruction happen? The voice diaries give you more insight, but nothing beats having the absolute truth play out in front of you. The basic premise to BioShock's story goes a little something like this. As previously stated, Jack is aboard a passenger plane traveling over the Atlantic Ocean when it crashes. Being the only survivor among the wreckage, he is near a lighthouse and naturally swims to it for shelter. It is here that we are introduced and guided through radio by a man who goes by the name of Atlas.
Would you kindly pick up that shortwave radio? I don't know how you survived that plane crash, but I've never been one to question Providence. I'm Atlas, and I aim to keep you alive. Now keep on moving. We're gonna have to get you to higher ground. Take a deep breath and step out of the bathysphere. I won't leave you twisting in the wind.
He sends him into the unfamiliar world of Rapture, forcing him to forget everything he once believed being possible. From there, Atlas takes you from one place to another with the goal of killing the creator of Rapture, Andrew Ryan, who you were briefly introduced to in the first few minutes. That's the bare bones description, but the story doesn't just reach greatness through the canvas that Irrational Games plastered. It also goes above and beyond by implementing several systems and mechanics that elevate it to new heights. BioShock included elements of lore and story within the gameplay, two of the most prominent being the plasmids and the little sisters. Let's start with the easier of these two complex topics to explain. Plasmids are genetic modifications that can be made to the body that give the user incredible abilities beyond any normal human being's imagination. These range from a variety of powers, like the first plasmid you attain, Electrobolt.
Steady now. Your genetic code is being rewritten. Just hold on and everything will be fine.
Where the user can shoot lightning from their hand, or incinerate, which allows one to shoot flames. There are several others like telekinesis, gusts of wind, ice, bees, and yes, bees, that you can shoot from your fingertips, which will then lead to them swarming your enemies. Plasmids are granted from you injecting yourself with a needle, and then letting it, as Atlas says, rewrite your genetic code. These plasmids are what keep you alive during your journey into the deep blue sea. It's like a processed form of Adam, which I'll get back to in just a second. And then there's little sisters. These small girls are usually carrying around a syringe and are seen stabbing lifeless bodies for that previously mentioned Adam. Adam can be seen as a drug that gives the user amazing talents. Unfortunately for the user that may abuse this, it leads to cosmetic and mental damage beyond repair.
What can I do with this one, Aphrodite? She won't stay. I want to make them beautiful, but they always turn out wrong. That one too fat. This one too tall. This one too symmetrical. And now, what's this, guys? An intruder. He is ugly. 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 Ugly.
This leads to the development of splicers, which we will once again come back to in a little bit. Little sisters carry this on them, and it's up to you to catch them and either A, save them, or B, harvest them.
Mr. Bubbles? Get up, Mr. Bubbles. Get up! Get up, Mr. Bubbles! No! 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 Thank you, mister. Thank you.
The decision leaves the player to question if they want to be selfless or selfish. Mechanically, it's a fantastic way of giving players the choice of being evil or kind-hearted without feeling entirely forced upon you. I simply chose to be good because 1. I can't quote-unquote harvest little girls who look to be the size of 4-year-olds out of morality imprints, and 2, more importantly, my girlfriend would murder me if I did such a thing, even if it is fake. BioShock incorporates decisions within its gameplay systems and not just through story like so many other games do. It's not a bad thing in these other games, it just makes everything here feel unique in a way. That would be an effective word to describe this overall experience. Unique in the way that the enemies use the surrounding area to come at you from high and low. Unique in the way that the player can be at a disadvantage in any given moment during the adventure, but by using particular aspects, that same area can turn a poor situation into a great one by just analyzing the situation that they're in and making the necessary changes in the environment to get the upper hand. Remember those plasmids I was going on about earlier? Certain ones can help more than others. For example, the electro bolt is probably the most useful because it can not only shock and stun enemies by landing a direct hit on them, but you can also shoot puddles of water to fry groups of foes. This extends to the numerous doors that are short-circuited and can be opened with a single blast of the skill to the keypad. The same can be said about Incinerate. You can launch flames at the oil on the floor and ignite your adversaries, who will then look for the nearest source of water and throw themselves into it, allowing you to combo it with electric shot to that puddle. It's these little combos that you can pull off with ease that make the game super accessible to anyone willing to jump in. You aren't just equipped with plasmids though. You come across a selection of weapons ranging from a revolver, machine gun, shotgun, wrench, grenade launcher, crossbow, and chemical thrower. Each weapon has different ammo types, which may be as simple as being a more effective bullet against a particular enemy, or changing the ammo entirely like the chemical thrower, which can shoot napalm and electric gel, which damages your targets. Combine this with the use of tonics, which allow one to buff certain stats like reducing damage taken or increasing the amount of health gained from first aid kits and snacks. You are more than well off handling all the denizens of Rapture by about the halfway point of the campaign, and you'll need all your gifts to take them down. Let's start with the easiest of your detractors.
This little fish looks like he just had his cherry popped. Wonder if he's still got some Adam on him. Hear that? Let's buck. Weak! You're a weak chopper. This little fish ain't worth towing it with no big daddy. Yellow! Always have been. You'll be no better off with a metal daddy, little fish. See you floating.
Splicers are humans that have lost their sanity and have in turn become psychopaths that have the intent of collecting any atom from any source, which is made clear from the jump that you have some atom, which means you are now going to be hunted until you are drained of it. These splicers come in a number of flavors, and I'll name them in order of least wild to most insane. Ones that are pretty much useless wielding a wrench and practically begging to be smacked up in a 1v1 duel to the death are called sluggish splicers. Then there's your leadhead splicers, who use a variety of guns and attack relentlessly and seems to never have to load their weapons. Next up, you've got your nitro splicers that hold a box of grenades and just chuck them like they're candy non-stop with no regard for their own well-being, as they will constantly toss them at you, even if you've managed to chase them down and be 3 feet in front of them. Spider splicers are not only one of the more batty assassins, but are also the scariest to encounter. They climb to the ceiling and crawl along it like it's some kind of horror movie before dropping it on top of you and doing acrobatic flips like Olympic gymnasts, slicing and dicing you up repeatedly. Finally, there's the Houdini Slicer, who incorporates mind games in their tactics. They vanish and reappear in different areas but mostly attack you and then poof away before doing it again and again, while you try to heal and muster up your strength. But wait, there's more than just splicers. You have the Big Daddies. These lumbering giants follow the little sisters around obediently and will protect them at all costs. There are a couple variations of this enemy as well. Ones that use the long-range weapon that will absolutely obliterate you if you aren't careful about your positioning and where your cover lies. Then you have the ones that basically charge at you full throttle and have no remorse as you lie on the ground trying to catch your breath and figure out what the hell just happened. The key word to define a pissed off Big Daddy is relentless. Relentless in the way that they will not stop in attacking you or anyone else for that matter until the opposition is eradicated from existence. Relentless in the way that it will protect and follow little sister and never stop. The name Big Daddy is truly fitting for this enemy because, much like a real father, they'll protect these girls with all they've got. The final enemy type in the game are security bots and systems. I hate these the most, but hate in a good connotation. The bots and systems work together to destroy you. The alarms and systems will spot you and send bots armed with machine guns to murder you, prompting you to do one of two things: simply gun them down for equalizers or hack them. Hacking requires the player to first stun the bot and then get into range of them and then press, in my case, the X button to initiate the hacking sequence. Then the minigame that you participate in more than you think begins. It essentially boils down to a connect the entrance point to an exit point before water flowing through reaches the exit point without being connected to the actual ending point. Point A to point B before water hits an unconnected portion of the puzzle. There are pieces that make it a little more complicated, such as certain sections that will cause you to fail instantly if the water touches it, forcing you to navigate around it entirely, or when the water flows faster when cracking a safe or turning off an alarm system. Hacking extends to safes, alarms, bots, sentry turrets, which became my favorite because nothing is more satisfying than taking over multiple turrets and watching as your kingdom of automated defenses completely eviscerates any splicer, Big Daddy, or bot that comes across it.
Pull yourself right along with me. I offer you a quick death, Dempsey.
No discrimination here, and I love watching the rocket turrets blasting my adversaries with missiles. The final mechanic would be loot and items. It takes a pseudo-RPG approach to this aspect. Enemies drop loot that can be used to restore health or replenish ammo, or they may have cash that you can use to purchase items from vending machines, which you can also hack to reduce the prices and potentially buy items that you couldn't purchase without hacking first. Vending machines include ones that sell ammo, general supplies, atom-related upgrades, and even a machine that allows you to create different ammo types or supplies for yourself. Handy for when you don't have the cash but need some kind of bullet to just barely scrape by the next encounter with that troublesome Big Daddy. All the mechanics and structure of how it all works in unison to offer many distinct options to deal with all confrontations you will undergo. Everyone I spoke to told me the story is what makes this game, and in part it is what makes it so great, but for me, a majority of my praise goes to the crazy amount of procedures and mechanics involved in this game. Level design is outstanding, allowing the player choice and freedom of how they handle problems. It's a problem-solving game. Do you charge brute force using primarily ammo types in your wrench? Do you use a combination of plasmids in your environment to ruin someone's day? Hack everything in sight and lay traps for your invaders to stumble in and watch as a Rube Goldberg machine of chaos unfolds before your very eyes? The choice is 100% up to you, aside from a few scripted portions. BioShock's gameplay isn't great because the game feels good to play years later. Its gameplay is great because it offers choices to approach its battles while playing great at the same time. BioShock's atmosphere is palpable. The amount of objects packed into each interior is astounding. You feel like this world could have actually existed in the 1960s because it's not futuristic to the point of unbelievability. Architecture is appropriate given the time period and the setting. Floors are still tile and wooden and not glossy like most games set in the future. Walls and arches are lit up with purple, blue, green, red, and yellow neon signs that have varying fonts and text that provide that genuine feel of the 60s. Skulking from section to section and exploring each new area. The Medical Pavilion, Arcadia, Fort Frolic, and Olympus Heights are bursting with creative freedom that holds so much uniqueness and is practically begging you to get lost and delve into every single nook and cranny hidden in each level. There's an interesting mix of both period-centric technology and futuristic insanity, but BioShock gracefully walks the tightrope of normality and absurdity. Weapons like the revolver, machine gun, and shotgun are typical looking, while tools like the chemical thrower add some spice to the selection to the design of the utensils used to vanquish foes. The plasmids are where the art design shines. Electrobolt shows electricity surging through your hand while Incinerate engulfs the fist with flames, and Winter Blast reveals spikes of ice protruding from a closed fist, with blood leaving the exit wound. Splices are dressed in whatever nice looking suit and tie combo or dresses that they had on before descending into madness. The big daddies look like they belong within the world of Rapture, rumbling around and groaning, letting you know that you were in for some serious trouble. Antagonistic main characters seem to have retained some minuscule amount of mental soundness as they set up elaborate plans and traps for our protagonists, but ramble on about what they want or don't want from life within Rapture.
Come down now. Life, death. The burden of the artist is to capture.
Well voice-acted audio diaries from several of the game's enemies and allies play in the background of the gameplay as you move on to the next portion of combat, fleshing out the characters on a more personal level, learning about what their motivations are and where they stem from. This same treatment is given to level design. For example, Sander Cohen and his domain, Fort Frolic.
That's better. Atlas Ryan. Atlas Ryan. Da 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 da. Time-wise, you could get something decent on the radio. The artist has a duty to seduce the ear and delight the spirit. So say goodbye to those two blowhards, and hello to an evening with Sander Cohen.
We learn just how sick of a human being he really is when we see little details like the sculptures he makes resembling humans, and it's only until you hit one of these sculptures that you see the smattering of blood let loose, implying that these are actual people that had lives within Rapture. He's just one of a few villains that have quirks within environments and audio diaries that show more about who they are and how they came to be. Sound design goes a long way in authenticity of BioShock, so audio diaries that are delivered in meaningful ways help paint the characters for what they are, not what they are trying to be. This same influence of stellar sound design extends to the various effects going on in the background. Plenty of times you'll be lapping around hallways and rooms only to be greeted by footsteps or monologues indicating the insanity within someone's mind.
Why aren't you here? Why is it today and not then when you were warm and sweet? Why can't Mommy hold you to her breast and feel your teeth? Oh, no. No, 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 no. Baby and me! Baby and me! Oh.
Plasmids changed everything. They destroyed our bodies, our minds. We couldn't handle it. Best friends butchering one another. Babies strangled in cribs. The whole city went to hell.
Big Daddy stomped the ground while a little girl calls out for Mr. Bubbles, letting you know that it's about to go down. Lighting is used sparingly, as you use the previously mentioned neon signs to navigate, and I found myself using my Incinerate plasmid as like a candle light to see just enough. The soundtrack obviously adds to the atmosphere, incorporating songs like Bobby Darin's Beyond the Sea, That Doggy in the Window by Patti Page, and If I Didn't Care by the Ink Spots, just to name a few, and using an original score for more somber and action-heavy moments within. If any game could be used to showcase the medium as an art form, BioShock would be among the top of the candidates. It is the cream of the crop, top tier, universally loved IP. Now for the portion of the video that I advise you. If you haven't played through BioShock and you ignored my warning in the beginning of this deep dive, then this is your second and final warning as we're about to go over the plot twist and some of my more favorite parts of the experience. I won't hit on all of them, but we will go over some key moments, some of which I touched on in the opening moments of this video. The lighthouse and the section after it is the most impressionable stage in the game. You're introduced to Atlas, Andrew Ryan, Rapture, and Rosie, the Big Daddy. You're subtly being introduced to major characters and one of the major threats without directly encountering them, letting you take in the atmosphere and absorb your surroundings. During this presentation of Rapture, the only voice you hear is the pre-recording of Andrew Ryan, the man who you don't meet until more than halfway through the journey. It's a great lead-in as to who he is because you only know the man he was during those recordings and audio diaries. It's not until much later that you learn the twist that has been going on this entire time. Another highlight, which after doing some research appears to be unanimously everyone's highlight, would be Fort Frolic, and I really don't need to go into detail about why it's excellent, when all I need to do is show you some set pieces that establish its excellence.
Find your path to Ryan is now clear.
One other area that I'd like to place here would be Arcadia. You know, that one place with the overgrown vegetation going on and your first encounter with the Houdini Splicer that will murder you. I enjoy this level for a few reasons. One, the first time you meet the Houdini Splicer, you have absolutely no clue what is happening. It plays out like you're being led to a boss fight when in actuality you're just following one of the many crazed teleporting individuals. 2, the layout of Arcadia is fascinating. There's so much lush foliage and use of many different colors. It feels like this is the first time where you see more land than water in the area. On top of that, the actual structure of this section is odd because it's easy to get lost, but you're only lost for a sliver of time because of the different landmarks integrated within Arcadia. There's so many little spaces that are begging to be explored, and there's a genuine sense of discovery with every corner you turn because nothing else within the game is like Arcadia. It's incredible. Then there's the twist of BioShock, the 3-worded phrase that begins our entire journey. Would you kindly?
Stop, would you kindly? Would you kindly? Powerful phrase. Familiar phrase.
Would you kindly? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch?
That phrase sets everything in motion from the very start. You think you're in control of your own actions until it's revealed that you never really were, and being controlled by none other than your supposed ally, Atlas, who is later revealed to be Frank Fontaine, the rival of Andrew Ryan, who wants nothing more than to take Rapture from Ryan's hands and to take the technology in Adam and then extend it to the surface and become an industrial tycoon. He has you kill Ryan before revealing to you who he truly is, and from that point on, the adventure flips. It's a wonderful change in antagonist because you go from hunting down someone you don't know aside from the audio diaries to hunting down someone you thought you knew and find out everything was a lie. You also never once meet these people in person until the tail end of the story, further impacting the reveal. There are so many little details that make this twist great, and Irrational Games is to be commended for it.
Nice! time to end this little masquerade. There ain't no Atlas kid. Never was. Selling my line of work takes on a variety of aliases. Hell, once I was even a Chinaman for 6 months. But you've been a sport, so I guess I owe you a little honesty. Name's Frank Fonte.
I gotta say, I had a lot of business partners in my life, but you, of course, the fact that you were genetically conditioned to bark like a cocker spaniel when I said, would you kindly, might have had something to do with it, but still. Now, as soon as that machine finishes processing the genetic key you just fished off Ryan, I'm gonna run Rapture tits to toes. You've been a pal. You know what they say? Never mix business with friendship. Thanks for everything, kid. Don't forget to say hi to Ryan for me.
BioShock is an inspirational piece of media. It's inspired myself and others to pursue a goal of creation just like Irrational did all those years ago. People wanting to film movies so much as to turn down the opportunity to direct it if the product wasn't the same quality as the source material. There's a reason why it's been deemed one of the best games in recent memory, and it isn't because of its engrossing atmosphere, superb gameplay, or even its stellar story. It's because of Irrational Games' masterful demonstration of how to bring your dreams to a reality through passion, innovation, and a love for what you do. Yo, it has been like, what was it? The last one I uploaded was in July last year, so it's 2017. July 2017 when I did my Darksiders 2 deep dive. We are finally here in, well, actually as of right now, it's 7:09 p.m. March 31st. I am recording this. I finally have more time now because I got a regular 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. job instead of working 9 to 8 or noon to 8 and getting off super late, or noon to 9 or noon to 10 or noon to whenever I decide to get off. Finally have more free time to myself and more time to dedicate to this stuff. To give you an example, I recorded footage back in like January, and then I lost the footage, and then I recorded it again in February, and I finally got the chance to finish my script, and I got the chance to finally do this voiceover. Dude, it's been so long. I do want to thank you guys for rocking with me. We're at 549 subscribers last time I checked. It's crazy, honestly, it really is, and I'm just trying to grow. There's some changes happening in my life, but things are good overall, and I should be able to dedicate more time to this, and I am excited to move forward. I am also, this is a quick little announcement, I am looking for people to help me out with another deep dive video, and it's going to be for recording footage. I just need some co-op partners to help me out. So if anyone's interested and they have an Xbox One, let me know. We can go from there. I don't know what series I want to do just yet. I have a couple ideas floating in my head. I guess it depends on what my co-op partners have to play, and then we'll just kind of go from that, because there are a handful of games I do want to try doing deep dives on and doing that from there. And I also want to kind of get my own footage in there as well. So if you guys want to help me out, let me know. Again, it'll be on Xbox One platform. I do have a PlayStation 4, but we'll see what I do there. But yeah, thank you guys so much for rocking with me, dude. It's like, it's so crazy. I see the comments on my videos, and people are like, yo, just take your time, just do your thing. We understand things happen. And it's like, honestly, it's like you know, I guess you could say kind of like fans, and I never had fans before. I've never even like, I don't know, you guys could be like, I don't know, man, it's crazy. People asking me if I have a Discord, people asking me, you know, when's the next one gonna get done, or what are you doing next, or what video is this gonna be on? Like, it's just crazy. I really do appreciate you guys. I appreciate the heck out of you guys so much. I'm looking forward to the next video. Maybe I'll do BioShock 2 deep dive. I don't know. Maybe I'll do something else and then come back to BioShock. I don't know. We'll see. But anyways, I do want to thank you guys for just, like I said, taking the time to watch this video. It'll probably be somewhere in the 30-minute spectrum of time. I don't know how long. We'll see when I get to the editing process. But yeah, thank you guys so much, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace. Thank you. Much love.